You may be seated. It is my great pleasure to invite my friend and colleague, Rabbi Joey Krakoff, to offer the Devar Torah, because he is actually the only rabbi here brave enough to follow Elon.
Perhaps now that you put that pressure on me, Rabbi Bergman, this is not such a great idea. But I do want to say thank you to Rabbi Bergman, Rabbi Shear, for allowing me the opportunity to say a few words today. And I also want to take this opportunity to wish a mazel tov to Leslie and to Michael, to Marissa, and to Daniel. It is really an honor to share this simcha with all of you, and good luck in your married lives together. So I want to tell you about an elderly Jewish woman who took her grandson to the beach. She sat in her beach chair, knitting beneath an umbrella, while her young grandson played right at the water's edge. Now, all around her were beachgoers. They were frolicking in the water, were sunbathing, and enjoying the beautiful day out on the Pacific Ocean. Then, completely without warning, a humongous wave crashed ashore, destroying everything in its path. As the waters retreated, there was chaos and the fading sounds of those who had been sadly swept away. Nothing remained, nothing, except for the elderly lady, still sitting in her beach chair, beneath her umbrella, unfinished knitting in her lap, somehow miraculously unscathed. She frantically stared over to where her grandson had been only moments before. She then turned to the heavens, tears streaming down her eyes, calling out to God, "Why, Lord, why? Why did you take my beautiful grandson, who had his whole life before him, and leave me, an old woman, at the end of her life? God, why didn't you take me?" Moments later, a second, even larger wave crashed ashore. For a brief time, all returned to chaos. The waters retreated, and this elderly woman once again found herself sitting as before, but now at her feet was her grandson, playing as though nothing had happened. The elderly lady looked up to the heavens and exclaimed, "But God, he was wearing a hat!" Fetching. That's what we call it. It's such a Jewish response, isn't it? But at least we come by it honestly. In this week's Torah portion, Bahalotcha, we see the Israelites having come forth out of Egypt and traveling through the desert. It should be a moment of great holiness, having been rescued from slavery. Yet the Israelites, our ancestors, immediately start complaining, mostly about where their next meal is coming from. And having read this narrative and taught it literally hundreds of times, maybe thousands, I still can't believe the chutzpah of our ancestors. It seems to me that the people are way too quick in their yearning to return to slavery in Egypt because they're concerned that they might miss their next meal in the desert. What strikes me most about this scene in the Torah is simply that the Israelites display attitude instead of gratitude. Life has shown us, each and every one of us, that things are sometimes just not going to go our way. In those periodic situations, we have a choice. We can complain, we can claim it isn't fair, and we can rant away, which is the easy response. Or we can pick ourselves up, responsibly address the situation, and make room for, even amid an unfortunate occurrence, a moment for what our tradition calls hakarat hatov, literally recognizing the good and expressing gratitude. Why do we complain in the first place? Perhaps it comes from our false sense of entitlement, when we believe we deserve something, and if we don't get it, we become angry, maybe even resentful. But think about it. Most people don't want to hear us complain, except maybe our psychologist and our rabbi. Right, rabbis? People can come to us and fetch anytime they want, and we will listen. The truth is that excessive complaining reflects more about the person than the situation. It illustrates the unrest within us. And we are a religion that values pointing the finger inward as opposed to outward. Although I know Miss Manners would say that finger pointing is rude and never acceptable. Consider this. When we speak about the historical destruction of the first temple, which occurred in 586 BCE, instead of pointing the finger outward and saying, those terrible Babylonians destroyed our temple, instead we point our fingers inward and we say it was us who neglected our relationship with God. And that's the reason the temple was destroyed. And similarly, when we talk about the destruction of the second temple, which took place in 70 CE, done by the Romans, we never blame the Romans, but again, we point the fingers inward and say it was us, we, who treated one another in the human realm with sinat chinam, with causeless hatred. So when things go haywire, instead of complaining, which might be our natural reaction, and there are times when it's necessary, our tradition encourages us to bite our tongue, to count to 10 in Hebrew or in English, and to turn to gratitude instead, to adopt, instead of an attitude, to adopt an attitude of gratitude. By the way, almost 2,000 years ago, the rabbis of the Talmud were clear that we must recite a blessing not only over the good things that happen to us, which would be so easy, but that we must recite a blessing especially over the bad things that happen. Truth be told, sometimes what looks bad at first turns out to be really good and an amazing blessing. And that is still another reason we should temper our complaining and focus instead on an attitude of gratitude. Elon, one of the traits that has always impressed Ima and me about you is that you have intrinsically adopted an attitude of gratitude. You are a naturally grateful person. The words thank you are constantly on your lips. We've never had to remind you to say thank you. And not only do you express those words, but you mean them. It comes from your neshama. You are also one who truly counts your blessings well beyond your years. And so we give thanks today to God for having you as a son, as you were born on the Hebrew calendar exactly 13 years ago today, Parashat Bahalotcha. And it has been our incredible blessing to watch you grow into a kind, caring, and humble young man. We love you very, very much. In this spirit of gratitude, I want to also express our family's deep appreciation to our Adat Shalom family, who has welcomed us over the last year and made us feel so welcome and so much that we belong here, and we do, and know that we do not take it for granted. We are particularly grateful to Rabbi Bergman, to Rabbi Shear, to Chazan Gross, to Rabbi Yaskowitz, to Alan Yost, and Lori, to the entire group of officers and board, and of course, the entire Adat Shalom family. Thank you, all, from the bottom of our hearts. Dear friends, I conclude with these words offered by a man whose words I love to study. He studies Musar, Jewish ethics, and his name is Alan Marinis. And this is what he says when it comes to developing an attitude of gratitude. He says this: the good is already there. Practicing gratitude means being fully aware of the good that is already ours. When we open up ourselves to experience the trait of gratitude, we discover with clarity and accuracy how much good there already is in our lives. Whatever we are lacking, we will still be missing, because we're not supposed to put on rose-colored glasses. But recognizing the good instead of complaining actually sets our hearts to soar, to shout, and to sing the song of life. As we now prepare to daven the Musaf service with Ilan and Chazan Gross, who has been the most amazing tutor for Ilan, may we participate actively through our prayers, both communal and personal, in taking a few moments to express our profound gratitude for our lives and to count the distinct blessings that are ours as we join together in singing the beautiful songs of our tradition. This is what I believe Alan Marinis is talking about when he speaks of the true song of life. Shabbat Shalom, and thank you again for the opportunity to address you.